Well, it's cracking, people. Angelic Mayhem here. So, a lot of you have been asking me to put up a full game of Dota, and so this is going to be that game. This was an all-random game, so I have random Tidehunter. I've only actually played Tidehunter about 3 times, so the idea behind this video is basically going to be what would actually happen if you did random somebody who you didn't know. How would you actually handle that? So this is, basically the style that I played is as conservative as possible. I wanted to make sure that I did not die in order to prevent the team, I didn't want to feed the other team. And so my item choices have reflected that. I picked up the Glove of Strength, which is this first one right here. Gauntlets of Strength. And the reason for that is because I'm going to build that into an urn at some point. I also picked up a bunch of Iron Branches to increase my stats across the board. And then most importantly, I wanted to make sure that I had a Sentry Ward. The reason for that is because we knew that there was a Riki and a Bounty Hunter on the board. I did not expect them both to come bottom. So that actually worked out huge for us because anytime that you can, put that the enemy puts all their eggs into one basket, if you can simply ward that basket, then you can rule upon high. This is my buddy Jake, and we were also playing with another one of my buddies, Cthulhu. A lot of us were in here together with 2 other guys who we didn't know, and this game just went phenomenally well. Basically, as a melee and an ranged, anytime that you have that configuration in a lane, you want the range guy to do not only to handle the range creep, but you also want him to harass the enemy as much as possible. And then as the melee guy, I want to try to deny our creeps as much as possible. And then I also want to work on the melee creeps of the enemy to try to last hit. Every now and then, at this point, I did not realize that he was going to throw out that ice, so I wasn't in position to actually get any more hits in on the bad guys, but that's a shame. At that point, we hadn't been communicating yet. We were still just kind of like getting ourselves in position and working out what we were going to do. The first piece of magic that I pick up is going to be Kraken Shell. I wanted to make sure that I was as tanky as possible. Kraken Shell, what it does is it basically does a damage reduction on anybody who hits you. The next one that I picked up is going to be Gush, and I'm going to max those 2 out. Gush is basically, like a string of water that, you are vomiting up on them. And it, not only reduces their armor, but it slows them down to 40%, which is really good. And especially at the beginning of the game, if you can, like for instance in this lane, if you can come around the woods, gush them from behind and then attack them, that's a really good way to do that. Now I also have a Jakiro here who's with me, and he's basically just going to keep throwing out those ice chains, as much as possible to freeze the people in place. And then after they're frozen, I'll gush them so that even as they're trying to get away, they're slowed down to 40%, and then we can usually get a kill or 2 out of that. Now, a lot of you are saying, well, why didn't you go with the Anchor Smash first? That's a great way to push the lane. Given that I rarely play this guy, and this was a horrific last-hitting attempt, by me, I just wanted to make sure that I was tanky and that I didn't die. I was not interested in pushing the lane at all. In fact, I was spending a lot of time trying to get our lane back to our, back down towards our tower. All right, now Jake actually has to go back to base here. He considered, actually healing up at first, but then he just decided to go back because he didn't have any mana as well. And so that's going to leave me on the lane by myself. Now, that's actually a good thing for me because I'm going to pick up a bunch of extra experience, and that's going to allow me to get my ultimate faster than I normally would. Which in turn actually allows me to get a kill later, so, that all worked out really well for me. What I do want to do, however, is try to pull this lane back as much as possible. So I'm going to not last hit. I am going to try to deny creeps as much as possible after the tower takes care of them. Because now that they're pushed in, they're too close to the tower for me to do anything about that. As a melee guy, you just don't want to go in there guns blazing or trying to be all badass this early. You just simply, you'll get eaten up. I did pick up this Sage's Mask right here because I wanted to try to get my mana regen up, even though it's still only 1-4. It is still that much extra that I can kind of, work with my Gush a little bit more. Now, in terms of the other lanes, we do have a gank happening here. I was not expecting this Night Stalker to come down here. And when he did, I was able to get a gush out on him, so that kind of taught him a lesson. But I knew, watching the map, I was able to see him duck into the woods, so I knew that he was coming for the gank. You know, he wasn't leaving anytime soon, so we were just going to not push the lane or do anything like that. And the great thing about having those wards out is that, you know, the invis guys weren't able to go invisible, and when they did, we knew where they were, so we were still able to do damage. Their gank on their side was actually a bad idea because the two heroes who are in this bottom lane are very squishy, and any direct hit on either of them would send them back, and that was the end of the gank. So it was nice that he came down here to try to help them out, but really, it was ill-conceived. Ideally, if you have two invisible guys, which the enemy did, you do not want to put them into the same lane. Simply put, I was able to just keep throwing out sentry wards over and over again, and their whole thing was they were depending upon heavily the surprise factor of being invisible, and by taking that away from them, you know, there was no way that they could do anything with their lane. Alright, now I actually feel a lot better now that this lane is back here at our tower. It allows us a lot more in the way of flexibility in terms of trying to kill off the enemy guys. If we were only concerned about the tower, we would actually just, you know, push this lane as hard as possible and just keep sending wave after wave of creeps in there. But that wasn't our concern. We were very concerned that if they did go invisible and we were out of position or something like that, then that would be a problem. If he had turned back into the ice, that would have been a kill there, but he got away. At this point, Jake and I were talking pretty heavy about, you know, how are we going to get these guys and what are we going to do in terms of... Now, we were able to get a really good army going here. We got 3 melee, 3 range creeps, and the trebuchet, so they're all going to go in there. They're going to do heavy damage to the tower. I now here... So Jake needed a tango, and I was trying to give it to him, but I don't actually share tangos on a regular basis, so I didn't actually know how to do that. So it took us like... it took us almost 30 seconds to figure out how that was done. Alright, so now this is going to end up in a kill. I was able to use my ulti to stun them all in place, and then the final splash was enough to finish off the Riki. Now at this point, I was considering actually going back to base because having killed one guy and sent the other guy off the lane, you know, that would have been a great opportunity for me to go back, get all of my my mana back, and then to TP back to this lane. But, you know, when talking with Jake, we just decided, no, we'll just keep pushing it and it should be alright, because, you know, we don't need all of the magic anyway. So I was fine with that. I did pick up my urn finally, and next up is going to be my power treads. And basically, for this game, I just left them on strength for the entire time, because really, I didn't need anything but to be tanky, so I was fine with that. Still doing a little bit of farming, although I am considering harassing that Riki a little bit more. Now here, I did not engage him because I wanted him to think that he was still invisible and safe. And now that he pulled up, bang, I'm going to splash him. Now I know a lot of you are going to say, you easily could have killed the bounty hunter there, why didn't you dive that tower? Well, the reason is because sometimes it's actually better to let them go back injured to the base, especially at the beginning of the game. Because the amount of time it takes for them to walk all the way back to the base and then come all the way back to their lane, that's all that experience that you're missing. I mean, that could be almost a full minute and a half of, you know, them not gaining experience. So even though, you know, you get a lot of gold and things like that for the kills, sometimes at the beginning of the game, it's a little bit better just to let them go. Don't take any damage from the tower, and, you know, having been out of magic, I really wasn't in a position to finish that off anyway. Now, mid told us that he was having a lot of trouble. They were ganking him hard, so we came mid in order to fix that. And to begin, I didn't want to actually engage anyone. I just wanted to be the big dog on the scene. I wanted them to know that my ulti was here and that I could initialize if I wanted to, and that kind of prevented them from really pushing hard on the tower. Now, sadly, our TA got a little bit out of position here, and he ends up dying. However, I was able to do enough damage to the Night Stalker that it really made it not worth his time to try and engage the rest of us. And after we ran off the Death Prophet, we kind of figured, well, it's a 2v2 here, so we just kind of backed off. We didn't want to really push this too hard. And of course, that was a good thing because we had this bounty hunter here. So I was able to get out without actually dying. And so now I'm going to head back to base. Now I remember somebody had pinged the map here in the middle, so I was actually coming here just basically to investigate. And then after I got here, I figured, well, you know, I'm so close to mid, we might as well go there, since I had the Jakiro behind me. And that was actually a great decision because I had the opportunity to help out with this. She pops her ghost, and normally I wouldn't press that at all, but she clearly thought that I had just continued to head top. And when I circled back, I was able to pop my ulti, and that gave us the kill on this one. So that worked out really well. Now I'm just going to head top. I wanted to push this out and then do a little bit of farming. Again, this lane had been abandoned, so I was here for about a good 2 minutes. Alright, so I was able to pop a ward out here because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't ganked by either the two Invis guys. But then Night Stalker came up here, and I knew for a fact that 1v1 versus Night Stalker, I was pretty much doomed. So I wanted to TP back out of here. I figured I'd abandon the lane to him, and that would be fine. And then I was going to head back bottom in order to farm that up. Alright, so now at this point, we actually gave them that middle tower. We decided not to contest it because it was so weak anyway, and we were all out of position. I mean, me and Jakiro, we were both bottom, and then top was a 3-man. They were pushing against Night Stalker, so we were just going to, you know, camp on that. I do pick up a TP scroll here because I knew that we were going to have to go mid eventually just to push that out. Because we didn't want to give them the tier 2 tower. That would have been bad. I threw out my Invis ward because I knew that I'd be alone down bottom here, and since I was going to be pushing the tower, I didn't want to get ganked or surprised. At this point, I don't want to use any magic unless absolutely necessary. Again, I'm playing ultra conservative. I was able to get the bounty hunter here. I just wanted to get him down to half health so that he would, you know, consider running away. And I knew that I had my power treads at that point, so that was good. My only other thought here was that I wanted to make sure that nobody was able to harass the Witch Doctor. You know, his ultimate ability would have been a great way to push back any sort of counterattack that they could have done. So I just wanted to make sure that he was still at full health and, you know, had as much mana as possible. Really, at this point, given that the wards had worked out so well at the beginning, I had already resolved to just throw out ward after ward after ward. So I knew that I was just basically playing support. I had no interest in actually, you know, becoming any sort of warlord or anything like that. I considered doing a splash there, but then I reconsidered. I just wanted to kind of stick with him, and I also knew that we had a guy coming down via the river, so I figured once we were a 3-man, we'd be, you know, that'd be the better time to do it. And indeed, it paid off, so that was good. All right, so we got the Riki there. And I got a nice splash on him. I thought I could kite that bounty hunter a little bit further, but he was, at that point, he pretty much knew that we had him covered, so he was playing more conservative than before. I also knew that middle was about to get pushed because I had seen him in the river, so I'm going to TP over there in a little bit. And this is going to be my first use of splash. Splash is basically an AoE that's very tight. It's you know, it only goes out a little ways. So if you're surrounded by creeps or you have like a bunch of guys in on you, you throw out Anchor Smash and it basically just does this AoE effect that, you know, it does fairly good damage to the creeps. It's not as powerful as some of the other heroes who may be able to wipe out an entire creep wave with their AoE. It'll only take the creeps, even at, you know, like level 4, it'll only take the creeps maybe down to about half health. But then again, it's only 30 magic, and, you know, it regens every 7 seconds at level 1. So you can actually spam it fairly quickly. Towards the end, you know, when it gets to level 4, you can spam it every 4 seconds. So you can actually do really good work with it, but later in the game. All right, so that's why I don't really pick it up at the beginning. I just wanted to focus on being able to harass with my Gush and being able to tank with my Shell. And then, of course, you know, doing the ulti at 6, 11, and 16. All right, so here at this point, we gathered 4 mid. We also knew that they were pushing top, but there was only 3 of them top. So we figured, well, we'll be able to finish off their middle tower before they can finish off our top tower. And then we'll just go up there and we'll gank them. So that was the plan, and it almost worked. It turned out that they were able to break our tower a little bit faster than we were theirs. I'm going to surge ahead here because I know that Leshrac is going to throw out his stalactites. So I wanted to make sure that I took that, and the other 3 were able to continue attacking the tower. And that's what happened. So now we're going to head top here, but they're going to finish the tower off quite quickly, and then they're going to escape via teleportation. They'll TP out of there. So we actually weren't able to get any kills with this. Although we didn't know that, so I end up wandering around in this jungle for about 30 seconds looking for anybody who's trying to escape. So after clearing out the jungle, I would just wanted to come down here and do a little bit more farming. This was another opportunity to have the lane all to myself. This attack by Night Stalker, it really did nothing to me. At this point, my shell is a level 4, and so I'm not taking much in the way of damage at all. I'm basically a super tank. So I didn't mind that he hit me at all. What I did see, however, was that because we had that ward in place, they were running through the river, and I knew that we could do something because they were going to come over and try to get our Jakiro. So after I got here, I popped my ulti, and that allowed us to get this Death Prophet. And then we basically had Night Stalker, except we accidentally our Storm Spirit zipped in there and actually hip checked me, so I wasn't actually able to finish that off. But otherwise, that would have been a double kill. And that's not his fault. He was just trying to help us out. Alright, so again, we're back mid. They do not have their tower, although I have already spent my ulti, so this is kind of an even attack. We also don't have any wards out, so because they can go invisible. Now, sadly, for the Riki, he decided for whatever reason to attack that guy from behind. I know he gets the bonus there, but that was really ill-conceived, because at that point I splashed him, and then he was dead at that point. And being without them, now it's a 5-on-4. At this point, somewhere around here, I bought some more sentry wards because I knew that we were going to need them for any sort of push. I had to back off here because Death Prophet threw out her ghost. And Jakiro hung in there. He threw out his ice, which was nice. I was going to splash the Bounty Hunter, but he got killed before I could do that. And I knew Leshrac was going to throw out his stalactites. You can always tell whenever a Leshrac kind of like comes forward like that, that's because he's throwing out his stalactites. The range on those is like it's very limited, so he actually is almost always running forward when he throws them out. I also picked up the recipe for what was that the recipe for? Oh, my Skull Basher. I picked up the recipe and not the other one because I didn't have the gold for the javelin, and I wanted to get my gold down because I knew that we were going to try this gank right here, and if it didn't go my way, I wanted to make sure that I didn't feed them a bunch of gold. So we come up here. I saw the Night Stalker was up here all alone, so I told everybody to come up here and help me gank him. I splashed him at first, and then he just didn't have enough time to get away, so that ended up to be a kill for us. And since we were all here, I decided that we should push this lane. I also had the illusion, so I knew that I could send those in to tank against the tower. Now this Riki, he had no idea that I was about to plant that ward, and he just was instantly visible and had no clue, so he ended up dead. And now at this point, I send my illusions into tank. And then I come around here because I knew that I had my ulti. And at first I thought, well, I'll pop my ulti behind the tower, which will leave my guys to, continue to attack the tower. But I thought, well, that's kind of foolish. So what I did was I decided to wait. And then Death Prophet, she was completely out of position. She just was she went totally greedy there. And it ended up costing her life. Because Jakiro was in the woods and she didn't realize that. There's Leshrac. We knew that was coming. There was some debate whether we should keep pushing or not. Because our middle was pretty pushed out, although they weren't going there. And then our bottom, there was already a guy there handling that. But we knew we could take it, so we finished it off. And then after that, I believe I went mid. And I gave Leshrac a little kiss here. Big wet sloppy kiss. And I've got my Skull Basher coming to me. Alright, so now at this point I'm going to TP middle. Storm Spirit was on his way to the secret shop and he said that he was being swarmed. So I came up here to find out what was going on, and here it turns out that everybody's right there. So I ended up almost dead, but it actually worked out okay. I came over here to get as close to our tower as possible because I knew they wouldn't dive that. And then while I was here, it turned out that I was now the backdoor man, so I was able to splash Night Stalker in order to keep him from killing off our Storm Spirit. And then Bounty Hunter just happened to wander behind me, so that was a great kill. And then I thought that the Night Stalker was diving our tower, but it turns out he wasn't. He had turned back inside. I just didn't realize that. Now, the Death Prophet, she's still mid, but I stay up top just in case she turned back into the river. And by doing so, I happen upon the Night Stalker, who really should not have been there, but... So I was able to splash him, get in real close, and then here comes the Witch Doctor. He's going to help me clean up. We do an ulti. Flat out. So that's a nice little assist, plus Witch Doctor got all that gold. My Skull Basher didn't come in as handy as I had hoped it would. I was expecting in some of these 5v5s to be able to really, you know, just kind of stun somebody or whatever. It only really happened twice. It did result in a kill one time, but I had hoped that it would proc a little bit more. Our Witch Doctor was really good with that healing spell. He was helping us out a lot with that. Which was another reason why I didn't really need to use my tangos even till the end of the game. And with that, one of our guys, he TP's top because that was a danger zone. And what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to go over with them because they said, well, let's Roche. And this becomes the single worst Roche in the history of Dota. These guys literally, they have no damage to speak of. And I said, well, you know, I'll tank this because obviously I have the most HP. But, you know, by the time I get to about 800 HP, we were like, this was ill-conceived. We should not have been doing this. And especially since we saw them pushing mid, so we figured, well, it'd be a much better use of our time if we actually ganked mid. So that's what we decided to do. At this point, I'm going to back out of this. So right here, they have pushed all the way into the lane, and they're expecting us not to be there, but the two who were there were actually able to do some significant damage. So when I come in from behind, this splash right here pretty much ends Death Prophet. And then they also lost the Night Stalker up top there. He was out of position in the woods. I was actually really happy that somebody paused the game here because I needed to shop. I need to figure out what my next item was going to be. And I decided it was actually going to be the Heart of Tarask because I figured at this point, well, I'm basically just a tank with a little bit of magic thrown in. So, you know, I figured that'd be a good way too. I hopped in the woods here just in case there was some sort of counter push. And, yeah, I figured I'd hit them with my ulti, but they never showed up. Now at this point, this is the 32-minute mark. This game is basically over. You can see that experience-wise, we have dominated. We know that we've dominated. We were able to kill them on their counter push, and so that's going to be the end of them. Also, in terms of gold, when they took down our tower at the beginning, which was about right here, we were able to take down one of their towers, so that sent us back up into the positive. And there was a little bit of some hesitation here at the 16-minute mark, which was back when Night Stalker took out that Witch Doctor. But other than that, you know, it's been pretty much smooth sailing. I've got some more wards and things like that here, and we're just going to basically push this out. So I'm going to hop ahead here to the end, and we're going to talk about final thoughts.
Dire's middle tower is under attack. Dire's bottom barracks are under attack. Dire's bottom barracks has fallen.
All right. So that is the end of the game. We have won. The final score is 37-10, and we won at the 37-minute mark, which I think is pretty good. I like having a kill a minute. I think that that's a good goal to have. Obviously, if you can do more than that, then that's better. Alright, so here we go. Let me pause this. So we have Jakiro and I, we were in a lane together. So this is me here, right? The Tidehunter. Jakiro and I, we combined for 13-0 with 28 assists. That's a direct result of me throwing out wards and him throwing out those long ice things that he does. Conversely, we were going up against Bounty Hunter and Riki, who combined to be 112-4. So that totally did not work out well for them. You can see that we shut down the Riki absolutely with 144 experience per minute. That's a direct result of us just keeping him off that line for the entire time. As far as the rest of my team, Spoderman and Spank, they were guys who we just picked up. They weren't actually part of our crew, but it turns out that they were really good guys, so that was really a lot of fun playing with them. And in terms of my build, again, I started off with Urn of Shadows. I never actually had to heal anyone with the Urn of Shadows, but it was there in case I needed it. I still had one of the 8 tangos that I started with at the very end. The Reaver and the Vitality Booster I picked up at the end, basically just to make me more tanky. And again, I was shooting for Heart of Tarask. Not that I needed it, but I figured, what the hell. And then my Skull Basher, that did not come in as handy as I thought it would, but it did give me the plus 40 damage. And, of course, the boost to strength. And then, of course, the power treads I already explained at the beginning. 62 last hits, not happy about that at all. Normally I'm in the hundreds to 200 range. I'm really good with last hitting. It just so happens that, with Tidehunter, he was a hero who I haven't played on a regular basis. So, getting that anchor to hit at the exact moment is one of those things where you kind of have to play with a guy for a while before you can really get it. But that's going to be it. I feel really good about this game. I thought it went really well, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please click the like button, share it with your friends, or subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content like this in the future. I'm Angelic Mayhem, and I'll see you next time.